Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Excel Wizardry with VBA. My name is Farhan Riaz, and I will be leading this session today. A little bit of background for myself as to why I'm the one up here. I'm the president of the Engineering Society, and I have a lot of experience with automation within Excel and optimization. I work a lot in process improvement, so I got my hands really dirty with Excel and like the back-end stuff of it. I thought it'd be nice to kind of give back to the community and show everyone like what the applications are for this wonderful piece of software. So the summary of this workshop, some of the things that we'll be covering, the fundamentals for any programming, I would say, are like for loops, if statements. It's something that's unique to Visual Basic for applications. That's what VBA stands for, by the way. I just looked Googled it like 5 minutes before this started. I didn't know what VBA meant for. It stands for Visual Basic for applications. So buttons are something that's quite easy to make. You can assign macros or assign subroutines to those buttons, and then they run. Message boxes, and then some automated code. A lot of these are fundamental concepts that you can transfer over to other programming languages, or you can bring back from other programming languages. Just a show of hands, who has ever done any programming whatsoever? Okay. Has anyone ever done Visual Basic programming? Okay, on a scale of 1 to 10, how many people here are a 10 in Excel? About a 7. Okay, we have 2 7s. About a 4. And who here has nothing and no knowledge of Excel whatsoever? Okay, so it's only a few. So just a warning, this workshop will be less of Excel and more of VBA for Excel or within Excel. But we'll still be using spreadsheets. If you attended my other session, which was more focused on dashboard creation and automation, that was more focused on Excel and some of the functions that it has. This workshop will focus mostly on VBA coding, and we'll actually go through a real-life project that I worked on to solve a problem, so that I can demonstrate to everyone here how you can actually use all of these concepts within a real-life scenario. So, why Excel? It's great for problem solving. It's relatively inexpensive, so people or companies or organizations would rather invest in licenses of Excel rather than any other program like MATLAB or any other expensive programming tools or anything like that. So relatively inexpensive, and you can do a whole lot of stuff with it. And I'll share some of my escapades within Excel. And it's essentially like Lego for grown-ups. That's the term that I like to use. And like I said, I am a student at Ryerson. I'm by no means an expert at VBA. I'm purely sharing some of the knowledge that I have acquired over the last few years and sharing it with everyone. So there might be times if you have questions, I will try my very best to answer them, but you'll see me Google these answers and just give them out to you in a way that may help you understand. What you'll get away from this workshop is, like I said, how to use these tools, and more importantly, what to Google. 99% of the time, it's mostly that you gotta know what to Google, and you'll be able to solve whatever problem you have. Hopefully, by the end of this, you'll take that away. So, a lot of you have paper handouts. Unfortunately, I didn't. There's a lot of RSVPs on the form, but I didn't print out as many just because I didn't expect every single person to show up. So if you don't have a handout, you can still get the files on this website. You can just go to this tiny URL, which is tinyurl.com/dbawiz, and you'll be able to see all the files. Even if you have a paper handout, I would encourage you to download it just so that you have like a workable file on your computer. Let's say you make a typo or a syntax error. So I'll just show you what this thing actually is, if you paste that in Chrome or Internet Explorer or anywhere, it will redirect you to a Dropbox link, which will have all the sessions that I've ever done in the past. And you'll notice that November 1st is the only one with VBA, so this is the first session that I'm ever doing with VBA. Just go in there, and you'll find 2 folders and 2 PDFs, two presentation files. You don't necessarily have to worry about the presentation files because this is just more for me to present, but you can follow along with it afterwards if you need to. The folder that we're going to look at right now is the simple examples and the account sorting and exporting project. So if you can download both of those folders onto any folder in your desktop, then we can get started on some of the fundamental methods and concepts you can start applying on. I'll just give everyone. Yes? Oh, sorry, yes. It is. Oh my god, sorry. There you go. Just give me a thumbs up once you're done downloading. I'll give everyone like a 2-minute window. Is anyone having difficulty finding the files that we need? No. Okay, I'll give everyone 20 more seconds. I'm not timing this, this is internal clock. Is anyone lost so far? Okay, I'm assuming everyone has the files downloaded. If not, that's fine, because we're creating every file for the project from scratch. You might just need the data set, which you can obviously go back at any point and grab that. Okay, so moving on. Our project for this course, for this workshop, will be based on this problem statement. You are the VP Finance of the Robinson Elementary Stupid Scholars, aka RES. You manage accounts for 48 different departments, so you are part of a large organization that manages 48 departments. Every department requires a weekly update for their finances, and the financial data you have available is more than thousands of rows of data. So, I know this is kind of vague, but if you look at the data set that we have in the account sorting and exporting project, it's labeled data set for convenience. So we can find that file. If you look at that, this is the test data that we'll be working with. And it's not 1,000 plus because I decreased a lot of it just to speed up everyone's code. It's only 300, but it's still a lot of data. Now, if you're a process engineer, or even like a person who has a little bit of a background in VBA, you can greatly optimize how you send everyone their weekly updates. So I'll just demonstrate what it looks like for a person with no VBA background to do the same job. So in column A you have the code number, and then in column B you have the account name. And then following over here up until you find account 2 is the account statement for this one department. Now the goal or the objective of the VP Finance of the society or the organization is to go in here, create a new file. I'm going to put it side by side, so we have my data set and my entry file. And what each department requires is that I take this and all of this data for account 1, paste it over here into my new sheet that I created. You don't have to follow along, this is just a demonstration of the manual process. I pasted all of that over here. Now I'm going to save as this file on my desktop, and I'm going to call it account 1. And I'm going to save it as an Excel SX file. And you can see it shows up over here. For convenience, I'm going to make, and just to be tidy, I'm going to make a folder called export. And I'm going to put that in there. Oh, it's open right now, that's why. But essentially, this is, in this hypothetical scenario, this is the responsibility of the person to do exactly what we did 48 different times. Create a new file every time, paste the data every time, save it with a unique name every time. Now, I'm going to show everyone the final solution of this project and how you can actually automate it within Excel and VBA, and just multiply. So if I do this manually, it will take me maybe 2 hours to do. And I'll show you how fast it would be with one click of a button if you use VBA. So I've also given you the final solution. We won't be working with this. I only kept it here just for any reason. If anyone didn't follow along, we have the final solution and the final code ready for you, available to everyone. You don't have to open it. I'm just doing this for the sake of demonstration. So these are some silly instructions, but essentially I've pasted all my sample data over here, and I'm going to tell Excel to export all. I'm going to debug because, sorry, different paths are different. Sorry, different computers have different path structures, so I'm just going to do some quick debugging right here. The beauty of VBA is that it actually tells you the exact place where you messed up. So, just to be convenient. Oh, it doesn't even have a C drive. I just assumed. CD, my users, desktop. Okay, it should work. Works. Quick debugging. I'll show everyone what I did in a bit. But so I'm going to stop this code and run it again. Another. Probably because the file was already created. Yeah. Sorry guys. First time doing this. Okay, let's try one more time. All the errors are taken care of. Anyone know the Jeopardy? Anyway, so this is our folder. It beautifully created 48 different files, or however many we have in the data set. 43, sorry. you have an account statement ready to go for each department. Anyone amazed at this point? Show of hands.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. I'm glad you are. Apologies for the hiccup with the pads. But how many of you guys are not using C drive as your primary directory? Very hard question, isn't it? We'll find out when you get errors. Okay, so without further ado, I showed everyone what the final product looks like and what the objective is. But before we get ahead of ourselves, we're going to take it step by step. We're going to go through how for loops work within VBA. We're going to go through how if statements work, how to create new sheets, how to create new workbooks, how to filter through the data very, very fast, how to optimize your code, how to debug, and then finally how to put it all together into a nice working project. Now, I know we don't have much time, so we're going to spend 30 minutes on the fundamentals with the for loop, if statement, this and that, and then the rest of the time we're going to be creating this project file from scratch. But if we don't finish, all these files are available to you, and I'm hoping that everyone will be able to follow along at home or with your own practice. Just a quick summary on how we tackled how. I know we only pressed a button at the front end, but how did this actually work? Like what the algorithm is, and for all the engineers in the room, like this is where your optimization comes into play. The first thing that's happening is you're making sheets for each account, and then it's going back and filtering through the entire data set. It's copying the filtered data to the account sheet. So once it's going back to the big data set, filtering, okay, I only want account 1. It's taking that data and putting it into a specific sheet, and then it's copying that data into a new workbook and saving it on your desktop. And then it does that however many times for however many account codes you have. So like I said, before we get there, let's learn some basics. The first thing we're going to look at is for loops. And for this one, let's start up we're going to start up a new file within Excel. We'll just start completely from scratch. I'm just going to call it P1 for part 1. So the first thing you'll notice over here is we don't have like any way of accessing the developer panel or where we go for VBA. That's because some of you may not have the developer tab open right away. So please follow along to how you can actually have that enabled on your sheet. Go to your file and then options. And then click on Customize Ribbon. And once you're there, you just need to check the developer option over here, and you'll have access to all the VBA tools. I'll show that one more time. So go to File, Options, Customize Ribbon, and then you're selecting this option over here, the developer option. And then you say, okay. If it doesn't show up, just try closing your Excel file and opening it again. That usually solves the problem for me. Anyone having difficulty so far? Please raise your hand. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is actually resave this file, because anytime you want a VBA file to work, anytime you want VBA to work in your Excel file, you need to save it as a specialized format. And that's, if you just go to Save As, whatever folder, you're just selecting the second option you have available, which is Excel Macro Enabled Workbook. If we don't do this, then Excel is going to give us some problems. It may still run your VBA code depending on what version you're using. And for the Mac users in the room, if you're having difficulty like following any instructions at any point, just let me know and we'll try to work through that. But essentially, save it as a macro-enabled Excel file, and that should take care of any of the errors. Our first objective is to have two numbers over here. So I'm just going to blow this up. I'm going to call this A and B. And just for aesthetics, I'm going to do this. And what we're doing is we're going to be inputting two numbers over here. And upon the press of a button, it tells me if B is greater than A. Very, very simple code. This is the same code that I've given to everyone, but it should be enough to highlight how the if statement works. So we're just going to put in random variable over here. I'm just going to say 20 and 15. Everyone good here so far? Okay. The next thing we're going to do, we're going to go to our developer window, and we're actually going to start coding now. So go to developer, and then go to Visual Basic, the option over here. And I'm just going to split this window so that we can see both of them. Anyone not here so far? You're stuck?
No, I missed how you got there.
Okay, I'll show one more time. Go to your developer window, developer tab on the ribbon, and select Visual Basic over here. Everyone here so far? Okay. So the first thing we need to do is we need to add a new module, and a module is just basically a workspace where you type in all your code. So over here in the drop-down menu, I can't zoom in unfortunately, but it should be the second icon on the second row. Click on the drop-down and click on module. And if you click that, it should change the window style, and it should say, okay, you are now in module 1, and you are now ready to start programming. Anyone stuck so far? These are fundamental crucial steps, so if you're stuck here, then it might carry forward.
Can you show that for you?
Of course. So in the second row of your like the window that opens up, the second icon, if you click on that little arrow that does the drop down, click on module. Okay, let me do a print screen. So you're going for this thing. Do you see this option? This one? Yeah, everyone here so far? It should still allow you to do modules. What version are you using? 7. It should still be good for modules. It might not have a drop down. It might have a dedicated button for module. It does not.
Go under insert, and it should be there too.
Oh yeah. If you go insert, then it should have module.
He's not there yet. He's like 2 steps behind.
Okay. So again, do you have the developer tab over here? This one?
No.
No? Okay, go to your file,
Yeah.
options,
Yeah.
and then customize ribbon.
This is customized first section.
Yeah, click on customize.
Yeah.
And then you have to find developer on your main tabs options.
It's in
You have
popular.
to enable it. You have to make it so that there's a check mark.
It's in popular.
Sorry?
It's in the popular tab. For
Try looking into
2007.
popular.
Show developer tab in the ribbon.
Okay.
You found it?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Oh man, left behind. Alright, anyone not here so far? This is fundamental, so if you're not here, you may not be able to follow along with any of the what we're going to do next. Okay, cool. So now we're ready to start programming. So the syntax for VBA, we always start with a sub, and that just stands for subroutine. I don't know if I can zoom in. Sorry. I can't zoom in, but the code is available too. So if you can't read from there, then you can use the text file or the handout. I'm going to call this subroutine if example. And if you press enter right below it, it automatically creates the end sub. So sub stands for subroutine, and that's the way that Excel is going to store all your codes in the form of subroutines. You can call subroutines within subroutines, but we're not getting there yet. We're just doing individual subroutines. And the purpose of this subroutine is just to determine if B is greater than A. I want it to say yes over here. If it is not greater than A, I want it to say no over here. Okay? I'm also going to go back here and rename the sheet to, actually I'm going to leave it as sheet 1, just so that there's some differentiation between the project file, and the working file and the handout that I've given to you, so that you can get to learn a bit more. Okay, so the first thing we need to do, or the second thing we need to do, is to declare immediate variables. And we can do that just by saying dim, which is just a capital D and then lowercase im. That stands for declare immediate. And we're declaring the variable named A as a long and B as long. The handout has it slightly different, and I'm doing that on purpose just so that you can see that it's, you can do anything you want, basically. Anyone lost so far? Okay. So once you've declared A as long and B as long, I'm not doing integers, yes?
Not lost, just wondered what long means.
So long is a data type. So I should probably have mentioned that. Again, I'm not a data scientist, but you have multiple different types of data that you can store in a variable. So you have strings, and you have integers, you have floating point numbers, and long numbers, and double numbers. So long is basically, correct me if I'm wrong, maybe Feroz, I'm going to put you on the spot, 16 bits of data?
I don't remember.
Either 8 or 16 bits of data. So integers can only accept values of 1, 2, 3, 4. It cannot accept 1.1, 1.2, so nothing with decimals or fractions. Long can. So by using long as a variable type, we are essentially saying that even if I put 22.5 over here, it'll still work. But if we had labeled or said that this integer, this is an integer, then it would not have recognized this, and I would have given this an error saying that, oh, the variable you defined is not what the value is. So long, double, float, integer, those are usually from numbers. So when you have text values, you say string. So declare immediate as string. And we've used some string variables within I think the next code that we'll be doing, or one of the codes. Okay, so for that reason, I'm going to leave it at 22.5. Why not? I'm just saving my files as I go along. Now, we've declared our variables. The next thing we need to do is we need to put some value to these variables. So, can anyone take a guess, without looking at the sample code, what A will be equal to? Sorry? Cell B1. Essentially something like this, right? That's what we're trying to do somewhat. We're saying that, okay, take the value in cell B1, which is over here, and put it into this variable A. You're absolutely right, that is a correct process. We're just going to use some of the correct syntax that we have available. So we're going to start with sheets. And so the sheets function basically says, okay, in what sheet is the data that you're looking for? For us, for me right now, it's labeled as sheet 1. This is the name of my sheet. So I have to say, okay, go look in the sheets, which is labeled sheet 1, and you have to put sheet 1, or whatever name that you've assigned to your sheet, inside the quotations, which is also inside the parentheses. I can blow this up for people if you want. So let's say your sheet name was, I don't know, mango. So you would put mango right here within the quotations. So that way you know that, okay, I need to look inside sheet 1 for this variable. Next thing you do is you press a dot, which basically says, okay, what next? I'm in the sheet, but tell me what next, because you need to be more specific. You need to point me to either a range of values or a specific cell. For this one, we're not using a range of values, but we're still going to use a range command, just because it's nicer to remember just one command and you can use it for multiple things. We're going to say, look into range V1 and bring out the value. Okay, so we're saying look in sheet 1, then within sheet 1, look at the value within this range, B1. Okay? And that should essentially assign our variable A. Now, I'm going to save my data, save my worksheet, and we're going to run through this just to see if we actually did it right. So, this is one of the best features within Excel VBA is that it allows you to run your code line by line. And how you do that is just by pressing your F8 button. So that's F8 on your keyboard. So while in your code, just press F8 and it will highlight in yellow where it is at the point of execution. So it's going to run through the code. I pressed it once, and if you hover over it, right now it says A is equal to 0. If I press it one more time, it's going to identify it as A equals 22. And so essentially every time you press the F8 button, it executes that line of code. And then you can, if you're assigning variables like this, you get to see exactly what, you get to see it in real time. And then press F8 one more time, and you've successfully run your code. So congratulations, you've written your first VBA code. You've done nothing other than like assigning a variable, but it's very fundamental and it's very crucial that you understand like how it works. At this point, does anyone have any questions or concerns? Or is anyone lost completely?
Can you just write comments with the true stars?
Sorry?
Can you write comments with true stars?
Oh, yes, good question. You can write a comment by using an apostrophe. So if you do apostrophe, hello, it writes in green. I'll blow that up for you, hold on. So apostrophe. It's right beside your enter key. Anyone lost so far?
Oh, it just froze.
Oh, it froze? Oh no. Did you have an end sub? There's a whole bunch of things that can go wrong while writing code. And that's part of the learning experience. So if you can, just try typing it up all again, or you can just copy the line from the text file that I provided, so you can keep following along. Okay, if no, yes?
You know how you said for F8 it executes that line of code?
Yeah.
Is there something that you can press instead of pressing the function key?
Like you want to execute everything all at once?
No, I mean like for Mac, like instead of pressing a function key, is there something that you can press on the menu or something? That would do the same thing.
I believe there is, but I'm not too aware of it.
Debug.
Under debug.
Debug? Okay, step into? Yeah. So you can keep doing step into. and it will do the same thing. Thank you.
When it's saying macros are disabled.
Oh, so you need to save your file as an Excel macro enabled.
Yeah, I did that.
Oh, save it, close your file, open it again, and there will be a yellow header on the top below your ribbon, and it says, oh, warning, there are macros within this file, would you like to enable them?
Yeah.
Click on enable, and it should work.
Alright, thanks.
Yeah?
When you press F8 to see what stage it's at, like where does it show your outcome?
So if you hover for things that are not manipulating your sheet, you won't be able to see. If this is the case, we're not manipulating the sheet in any way. We're only storing a variable value for a variable. So if you just hover over the A with your cursor, you'll see, like once you're at this point, you'll see that it's assigned A equal to 22. If you do that before, you'll see that it says A equals 0 because it has not assigned anything yet. Any other questions? Yeah?
So is subscript out of range? Yeah, I have the same problem.
Okay. So, what is your sheet name?
Sheet 1.
Is there a space between your sheet and one?
No. Oh, it's sheet 1, not sheet.
There you go. Okay. Can anyone guess how we will be able to assign the variable b? Any takers? Same way, right? So I'm just going to copy that, replace that with b. What value do I put over here? The range changes now, right? So what do I put over here?
B2.
B2. Okay, so let's just do a quick sanity check to see if that does what it is supposed to do. And in fact, it does. Anyone getting any errors? Yes.
I'm still getting zeros.
Are you doing that while you're while you're stepped into your function? So while you have F8?
Yeah.
Okay, I have to look at this. So if it shows zeros, press F8 one more time. So the line that you have highlighted, that has not been executed yet. So once you press F8 one more time, your line will be executed. So right now, my first line of code is highlighted. It has not been executed. That's why it shows 0. So if I press it, now A is equal to 22. B is still 0 because it has not been executed yet. Sorry.
So it's a line after, right?
Mm-hmm. So to see your variable being stored, just go one line after, and you'll be able to see the variable being stored. Okay, so we've assigned our variables. Anyone have any last questions on like variable storing? Okay, so we're gonna go into the case structure or the if statement over here now. So the syntax for the if statement is very, very simple. All we're doing is we're saying if b is greater than a, then do something. And literally you're just writing if b is greater than a, then do something. Oh my. So that's our syntax. It's not complete yet because it has to be closed off with and if. So something like that. So I'm going to go ahead and write that. I'm going to say and if. So I know that I just have to write my if that argument is true, then this is the code that is inside of here will be the code that gets executed. So we're going to say, okay, if B is greater than A, then I want to say, I want to write the word yes in this cell over here. And if it is not, the else condition, if it is not greater than A, then I want it to say no. So just like how we did A equals sheets, blah, 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 we're going to do the opposite thing then. We're going to say sheets, blah, 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 equals to whatever value that we want to assign. So we're literally taking this, we're flipping it around. So I'll explain, or I'll demonstrate. We're saying sheets, sheet 1, range, and can anyone tell me what range we're outputting our value into? B3, correct. Because that's this cell over here, which is B3. So we're saying B3 dot value equals yes.
You're gonna comment on sheet 1.
Thank you. I can't see with this angle properly. Okay, so I'll zoom in. So you're literally just doing the opposite of what you did for variable assignment. You're saying sheets, go to sheets 1, or sheet 1, go to this range, and put this value inside of it. Was anyone brave enough to try to execute it yet? Yeah, did it work?
Yes.
Perfect. What happens if you do the opposite, if you do this? If you do this. What do you get? It just gives you a blank, right? Because we don't have the else yet. So can anyone guess what we would put in the else statement?
Else statement that put no.
Exactly. So just put that else over there. Say no. So that's what our code looks like right now. Again, anyone brave enough to try to execute it yet? Yeah, works? Good. So that is the simplest example that I can demonstrate to you on how if statement works within your sheets. I'm going to try and run it just to make sure that there you go. So obviously I don't want to come back here every time I need to execute this code, and obviously you can execute it just by saying the run sub or the whatever. I'm actually going to create a button that does it for me every time I click on it. So has anyone ever created a button before in Excel? Okay, cool. So if you go to developer in your ribbon, then go to insert, and it will show you a bunch of options. So the first one over here is, if you hover over it, it should show you, it should tell you what it is, but essentially that the first option you have over there is the button. I'm going to click on that, and then just drag and drop, and it'll create a button for you. And so right now this button does nothing. So you can just double click on it and you can rename it to say whatever. It doesn't matter what you name it because we haven't assigned any subroutine to it. So if I try to click on it right now, nothing happens. And how you assign a subroutine, and this is very important. So right click on your button and go to the option that says assign macro. Is everyone here so far? Yeah?
You make the button again?
Yeah, sure. Go to insert. And then the first option you have under form controls, the top left corner, is your button. and you'll see that your cursor changes slightly. So just drag and drop, and say OK. No? Okay, hold on.
I was at insert, and then what did you click on?
Okay, let me restart.
First one, public, and then
Okay, right here. You got it? Okay. So I'm just gonna drag and I'm gonna make a giant button. And you'll notice that as soon as you make the button, it asks you, okay, what macro you want to assign to it. I don't want to assign anything right now so that I can manipulate it easily. I'm gonna call it whatever. And now I'm going to assign it as like whatever and whatever macro I want. So right click, assign macro, and choose from your list of macros. So right now we only have one, which we created. Mine is called if example, and we're just going to select that one, or double click on it and automatically select it. And, it shows you that your cursor changes into the clickable hand icon. So if you click on it, it essentially just runs your macro. Right now it doesn't look like it's doing anything. So I'm going to say random value, and you can just keep doing this until your heart's content. Completely pointless, but
Can you do that part again?
sure. So all I did was I said rand, which creates a random number. You can even do a rand between, which makes it a random number between 0 and whatever. You can copy that same formula over there and then run your code. It actually takes the previous values. That's why it's messing up. But okay, don't do the random. Don't worry about it. Here, we'll just play around with it. What happens if we do negative? It still works because we did proper variable assignment. Question?
So by default, with a random function, every time you run a macro, it changes the random value?
Because it refreshes your sheet.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, that's good to know. So, anyone? Yeah, question? Cannot execute the code? Anyone else having the same problem?
I think she accidentally focused on the first little 8 time. I just asked to go ahead and so.
Yeah, so if I just equals rank. Can you equal rank?
Yes.
I get
I just did it.
What's your self type?
It's a function. So RAN bracket bracket. center. That's their interaction permanent.
In the center of this. Remember why he drew it so long? Remember why he drew it? Yeah, because he drew his line like really far. He drew his line like really far. He was like, oh yeah, it's gonna fall into that.
I believe it's run like an advantage. So you like,
You're way over there.
Yeah.
it could have been.
Fucking load.
That's a different
Well, yeah, that's something.
Oh, I
Excel.
Okay, let's continue. Just a comment on the random function. If you're using it, you'll notice that it'll take the values of the previous iteration that you had. So I just did that for the sake of me showing that I have no life, but if you use static values, it should still work properly. So I'll demonstrate what I've done. So right now, this is nothing. But you see how every time I press, if I do any change to the sheet, it automatically updates those values. That's just how the function works. So I'm just clicking and entering. It just refreshes the page. So when I do this, when I press my macro button, it's going to take these values and compare it and give me the solution. But it also refreshes the values when I do that. So right now it looks like it's not in order, but it's looking at the previous values.
Oh, so it gives you the answer for the previous one and then refreshes.
Yeah, then it refreshes. So a good challenge for you could be to make it not update every time. That's your homework. Anyway, let's continue to for loops. One of the most important things that you will learn is for loops, and that is you can do amazing stuff with it. So I'll just give you an example. One of the projects that I worked on was exporting. So who here has ever used FormStack? FormStack? Like on the back end? No. So FormStack is essentially a platform which allows you to make forms. It's a wonderful online platform and it allows you to attach PDFs and whatnot. But if you're using that on a daily basis, and the Writers and Engineers Society uses it for check registrations, which forces you to upload receipts as a scanned PDF, it goes all into our FormStack database. But unfortunately, we only get 1 gigabyte of space, and unfortunately, there's no download all button. When you try to do that, it only gives you links to every single file's location, but it doesn't really give you the files. So a simple solution using for loops, you can actually create a program which, upon a click of a button, it goes through every single link. It goes to your URL, forces a download of that file, closes your browser, and then goes to the next one. And something that would take probably 2 weeks for 800 different line items or URLs, it took 20 minutes to do with just a simple for loop. I didn't write that code by myself, I just simply modified it. I used a bunch of different help online, and I'll demonstrate it if we have time in the end.
Do you have it with you?
I have it on my laptop, yes.
Are you able to share it?
I can, yes. It's just that I am not the owner of the code. I didn't create it. I just borrowed it from it was free online forums. So like anyone can find it. Anyway, I just modified Hi. Yes, good. Come join. Sit. Study. Yeah. Bye, Meenakshi. Bye. Okay, so next thing we're gonna do is for loops. I just labeled my second sheet to be called for loop. Yep.
Call it a do loop.
Huh?
Call it a do loop.
No. It's not. You can actually do loops as well in VBA, but it's a for loop we're using. Anyway, we're gonna do the same thing. We're gonna say I'm gonna put A over here, and for B, I'm gonna say. You don't have to do rand between, I'm just doing it just to quickly generate my numbers. And I'm just keeping them constant by pasting over it, so I'm not using a function. If you want, you don't have to like create it all by yourself. You can just download the file that I made and you can copy over the existing data set that I provided. But essentially this is what we'll be doing. We're putting a value of A over here. So let's say 20. And within this row, within this table, for each one of these, we're going to say yes or no. So we're going to be implementing an if statement within our for loop. Anyone here not know what a for loop does? Or any loop structure? Okay, so basically what a for loop or any loop structure does is it executes a block of your code multiple times. So I can write the same code that I did for assigning a variable or writing yes or no. And I can say, okay, do this 1,000 times for this many cells. And it will do that in an instant. Instead of you coding every single time, saying, okay, do this, now do this, now do this. You can just enclose that within a loop and it'll automate it. And that's what we're going to do over here. So we'll go back to our module. Once you have like your one of your subroutines done, you can just enter and then start your next subroutine. Or you may start a new module, but for the sake of not going overboard with how many modules I have, I'm going to keep it in one module. I'm going to call this sub for example. Okay, I'll zoom in and I'll show you what I did. Oh my god, why? There you go. That's the name of my subroutine, yes.
So we'll go back, where do you get the values from?
Oh, this one? If you look at the example files that I provided, simple examples, it's in that one giant, if you open this one, I have all these examples already pre-made. So you can just copy this and put it in your other file.
So they're just random, right?
They're random, yeah, completely random. You can even hard code them by yourself, write them down like 100, 102 or whatever. Okay, so I created this new subroutine. I called it for example. You can call it whatever you want. You can call it whatever if you want. What is the first thing that we need to do once we start a subroutine? Any takers? Who said that? Declare variables. Perfect. We're going to, because we're still using A and B as a variable, I'm just going to do this efficiently and not type it again. I'm just going to copy it. Oh, sorry. I'm going to copy this dim.
This is on the sheet.
I'm sorry?
This is on the sheet.
Sorry?
That, the one you're writing on. Is that another sheet or just?
No. If you press enter on the end sub
Yeah.
and then start a new sub, it'll automatically like partition your code. So if you just try typing like sub, for example, it'll automatically give you a new chunk. So it won't, whatever you do below that line, it won't affect what you did in that code.
Unless it's within.
Unless it's within it, yeah.
So that's sub.
Then you're using a sub within a sub. But we're not getting to that yet. We're just using two different subs on top of each other, which have no correlation to each other.
instead of just opening up another file.
Yeah, instead of like me opening up a new module every single time, because I could have hundreds of subroutines. I want to be able to control. I want to say, okay, module 1 is where I do all my data cleaning. Module 2 is where I do all my exporting. Module 3 is where I do, I don't know, all my case statements, my if statements. So that's like, once you get more deeper and deeper into the realms of Excel, you'll be like, okay, anything I want to change with regards to sheets, I go to module 5. You can even rename modules to be like, okay, this is initialization. Yes.
Just real quick, how do you get the hard break again after end sub?
Okay, so right after end sub, let's start a new sub, and we'll call it anything. And if you do that, it'll automatically partition it for you. Got it? Yep. Questions? Yes.
I was wondering, let's say you open up like another workbook, right? Would these previous modules be accessible to that workbook?
Only if both of those workbooks are open at the same time. For the sake of what we're doing right now, I would recommend not opening any other workbooks because I've already given you some pre-coded macros. So you might run the wrong one by accident. So only have like one. If you want to know if you have 2 files open, then you can just look at this over here. It shows you that, okay, I only have p1.xlsm open over here. If there were multiple, it will show you like 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever.
I was thinking, like, let's say you want to run this program onto another workbook, not the one that we're looking
You would be able to, yes. Yeah. All you would have to do is go to developer, macro, and if you had multiple files, it would show you, okay, this macro is in this file, this macro is in this file, and you'd be able to call it and run it as you would normally. So it is possible.
Sorry, how do you get that Java class? That
Oh, go to developer
Okay.
and macros. These are the list of all the macros that you've ever done. Alright, is my thing still running?
Yep.
Perfect. By the way, we're recording this, so all of this, if you've lost in any time in any way, you can refer back to it. Hopefully it doesn't corrupt. Okay, so I made a new sub, I called it anything. Literally, I called it anything. You can call it anything you want. So, first thing I'm doing is declaring my variables again. I'm just saying dim A as long, B as long. Even if you do floats, integers, in our case, it doesn't matter. But you might run into a stack overflow problem. Take a note of it. Google that by yourself. That's something that you ask a data scientist. Okay. So, I'm just going to write the syntax for a for loop, and then we'll go through this line by line. So I'm going to say for I, which is I is just a random number, random variable that I'm using. For I is just a random variable that I'm using for incrementing my iteration cycle. So basically, you remember how I mentioned, okay, a for loop, basically what it does is it runs a chunk of code multiple different times. For this case, we're running it about 5,000 times. I say about because we're not starting at 0, we're starting at 4, and I'll explain why. But actually, can anyone here explain why we're starting at 4? Perfect, because our first number over here that we're comparing it to starts at row number 4. That's why I chose 4. Anyway, it runs 5,000 minus 4. That's how many times this loop runs. Of course, we don't need to overkill. We can just go back to 500, and it'll do the same thing that we wanted to do.
You can just do n, right? Like what
Yeah.
stops.
Yeah. There are very, very specialized way of making your range dynamic. You can say, okay, until you hit no more data, you can say, but that's a more advanced topic. Just for introductory sake, I'm just gonna say from 4 to 500. You feel free to explore how to do custom or dynamic ranges. It's very fantastic. You get to do fantastic stuff by that. You get any set of data and you'll be able to sort through it no problem. The same code runs on any single sheet that you get. So this is our syntax. Sorry, I'll just blow this up. So what we're going to do, what our algorithm is going to do over here is within this block, that's horrible. Within this block, we're going to write a few lines of code, which does the same thing that we did for that one if statement that we had. So can anyone take a guess as to what our first thing inside of this will have to be? What are we comparing? So this is just our iteration, right? This just goes from row 4 to row 500.
So it's just a statement inside.
Exactly. We're just doing the same thing that we did before, but now we're making the range somewhat dynamic. So the workaround, or the only, or the one of the most important things over here is that when we're assigning variables A and B, A can stay the same, but B is now dynamic because it has to increment every single time it goes through the loop. So maybe I'm not doing a good job of explaining it, but what I will do is I will just copy A. I'm going to put that over here because A stays the same. I'm going to take B. I'm going to put that within the for loop. But instead of B2, can anyone guess what we write instead of B2? B4, right? But considering that we have to run this for, let's say, I don't know, 111 times.
Wouldn't it be A4?
Yes, A4. Yeah, A4, but that's static right now, right? So if we were to do A4, then I have to copy this value again and say A5, and then again, and I have to say A6, and then again, I have to say A7. The point of the loop here is so that we only have one line over here that does it automatically. Sorry? It is A, you're correct. But instead of A4, we're just gonna write A in the parentheses. So we're gonna use this concatenation feature, which is signified by an ampersand, and we're gonna concatenate it with I. So I will blow this up a little bit. So the unique feature that I've added in this for loop is that when I'm assigning my variable B, instead of saying A4, I'm now just saying A, and then take whatever value you have within I in this increment and join it with A. So this is my join. Wow, this is some crazy paint skills right here. And then this is my I. So, yes?
Since we're working on the for loop, shouldn't that be the name in the sheet 1?
Your sheet 2 or for loop sheet.
Yes, you're right. You're right. So this should be a different name. Good catch. So I'm going to take this, I'm going to change it to for loop. I'm going to change that to for loop as well. But anyway, is anyone lost as to why we set it up within the for loop this way? And can everyone see properly? Yes, question?
It's just an and. It's just an and.
Yeah, it's an ampersand. So if you do shift and 7, it does that concatenation. Yeah?
Question, somewhat unrelated. So if I'm using variables A and B in my above macro and A and B in the macro below, and I'm running both macros at the same time, does it get confused, or it doesn't matter?
So this is sequential programming. So if you're running one macro it can only run one macro at a time.
Gotcha.
So you would never have that problem. Questions? It can be slightly tricky to understand what's going on over here, but let's go through this like line by line. We'll just, to start off with, it starts with I equals 4. Then it goes here and then it says, okay, B equals whatever value is in A, and then it looks at, and then it's joined together with the number 4, and it assigns that value. Okay, great. Now it does it one more time. Maybe it's better if we just execute it and see what happens. So if you hover over this, right now it's 80. If you keep pressing F8, you'll see that it's just jumping back and forth between these two lines. But if you have your cursor hovering over B, you'll see the value of B change every single time. And that's essentially why you would ever use a for loop, just to cover everything that you need. Okay, so we know our for loop is working. Right now, again, it's not, yes.
I'm getting B is 0 every time.
Is your range starting at A or B?
A.
Do you have your correct sheet selected?
Yeah.
Do you have are you selecting I
Yeah.
over here? Okay, let's look at it.
No. Because that's the fun.
Maybe it's not initializing. If for whatever reason you're getting like B to constantly be 0, try declaring dim I as integer. That may solve the problem, and if it doesn't, then it's probably just syntax somewhere that's messing it all up. Any questions so far? Okay, so we're going to carry on. The next thing we have to do is we just have to put an if statement within this loop, and that just puts a yes or a no in this column every single time. So I'm just going to copy the same thing for what I had in my first subroutine, and then I'll modify it as I need to. Okay, so this is where my if statement starts. And notice how I put A on the outside, and that's because I don't need this value to change every single time, because I know this is going to be just one value. That's why I put it outside of the loop. And I put B inside of the loop because I know that this is in fact changing every time.
Even if it was inside the loop,
It wouldn't do anything, it might just slow down your code. So in my if statement, if B equals A, then I'm saying go to sheet for loop, go to range B. Can anyone guess what to do over here? So I said sheets for loop dot range quotation B ampersand I. So essentially I'm just removing the constant numbers that I had. And I'm doing the same thing for the else. Okay, so that's what my complete code looks like right now. So this is our for loop, the beginning of our for loop. This is where it ends and increments. And in between that, we're sandwiching the if statement. And this is the same statement we used in our first example. The only thing that has changed is this. So instead of saying B3 or B4 or B5 as a constant value, like with the 5, 4, 6, whatever, we're changing that with a variable called I, which is incrementing every single time until it hits 500. don't have to do 500, you can do exactly how many you had, but it will do the comparison and output the value. So has anyone been brave enough to actually execute it yet? Is it working? Good. Anyone else tried it yet?
Yeah.
Perfect. So let me try it now. There you go.
On an error.
Okay, what does the error say?
It says function is not found
Function not found.
or not defined.
Not defined. Okay, let's look at it. Anyone else having any problems?
Oh, you don't, your sheet name is not 4, your sheet name is sheet 2. Just change the name to your sheet.
Who else had a question? Anyone else had a question or error or debugging? Okay.
Numbers and leaders. And just make one thing. Every time you press it, it changes my mind.
I'm seeing proficiency. I don't even think I'm gonna mention it.
Proficient in SEC.
Okay, I'll mention it.
Show me your projects.
Other questions?
That's not for us.
It's just a line. You just okay.
What words are you?
Because we've done up to 500, right? It's gonna go and try to compare. So you see the blank out. And it's
All the really
blank out is essentially 0. It's saying 0 is less than A. Oh, A is also, you have A, nothing in case. Just put in
Where's the camera? Oh my God.
So you can, there's a custom code that you can do so where it identifies where your last row of data is. And you can just say, okay, do it from I4 to that custom code. You can Google that. It's a bit complicated, so I'm not gonna demonstrate it right now. Yeah. So it's pushing right now is you can just say from 4 to 20. It should work. Okay, I'm going to continue. So, we've done almost half of what we needed to do. Yes, question? Do you want me to come over?
That's just the woman. We're super getting tall. Everybody's huge. That one. So crazy. Excuse me, look down here. Careful those that Is it wrong with you?
Back to your face.
Okay. We're gonna continue. If you're having any if you're getting any errors at this point, just for the sake of keeping up with time, just copy over the code that I provided in the text file and modify your sheet name as necessary, and it should work. We're gonna go on into the filtering example. And for this one, you need the data set that I provided, so I'm just going to call it filtering. And the data set is available within the simple examples folder. Again, the simple examples.xlsm. If you go to filtering example, I'm going to select everything and then copy it over here. I'll show that one more time. So go to the sample data that I provided in simple examples folder, there's a file called simpleexamples.xlsm. And then go to the tab that says filtering example. And then copy everything by clicking on the top left corner, like that. Copy by Control C. Go to your working file, and then paste by Control V. And then it should show you, this is like 8,400 lines of data. And if you attended my first workshop, this is the data set that we manipulated and worked on for that workshop. I'm going to close my example file.
So you said you used form stacks
Yes.
for this?
No, not for this. That's a completely different problem scenario over there. Not related to this at all. Yes, question.
It's opening something different when I open simple examples.
These are buttons. 3 buttons.
Yeah, just 3
Yeah,
buttons.
go to
They
the
have a
different tab.
sheet down there.
Go to the tab that's called, the sheet that's called filtering example.
They're not there.
You see dot, don't you?
Yeah, got it. Do we copy everything?
Yeah, everything.
Oh,
Yeah, copy everything here. Paste in your working file. Okay, now that we have our data, our main goal is to essentially apply so why would you ever need to filter data? So right now, if you look at what we have available, it's about 8,400 lines of data. Let's say you work with something like this on a day-to-day basis, and you always have to sort through the data every single time. So instead of you applying a filter by doing this, and saying, okay, I want this, I want discount to be 0.01, I want ship mode to be express air, and then this is what I want to look at every single time I get all of this data down. Let's say I work for the shipping company that provides all this data. So to automate it, for the sake of automation, we're going to write a macro that gives us the exact filtering sequence, I guess, that we need every single time. I'm going to put a button, not a button, we'll just have that in our macros list so that every time we get this data, we just click on it and then it runs this filtering and sorting and it does everything beautifully automatically. Okay, so the code for this is slightly longer than the other ones. So, but it's just copy pasting multiple different criteria based on like what you have. So for this one, we're saying that we need to. My criteria right now is that my filtering criteria is going to be my priority has to be critical. That's what I look at every time. The critical. My method of ship mode is delivery truck. So I only want to see delivery truck. And then my region, I believe, or my province is British Columbia. And just to top it off, my product container is a jumbo box. Okay, now if I zoom out, you'll see that the 8,000 lines of data has now become 17 lines of data. And you may have multiple different reasons to do this, and if you go to if we eventually get to the project file, you'll see that we're heavily relying on filtering to sort our data very, very fast, and then you copy whatever you get available and then paste it over to wherever you need it. Did I lose anyone with filtering so far? Perfect.
sorry.
Okay, so what is the concept of filtering? Can you answer me that?
Just selecting the
Okay.
It's just
List the filters.
you made.
Oh, how I get to the filters? Okay, that's what you got.
Just the selections you made.
This is, selection.
You don't need to copy that down because we're gonna hard code it. But how to get to the filtering? If you just select the first column and you just press filter, it just filters your data. Don't worry about like what exactly you do because it'll be coded in there.
So tell them to use
Yeah.
No, that was just for downstairs.
Oh, okay.
You can, if you've already done it, don't worry. Like you can just go to back to here and you can say clear, and then it'll show all data. If you're lost at all, just here I'll apply a filter, and you see this clear button over here. I'll just reset it to everything that you have to see. Okay, so I'm gonna call this subroutine filter. I'm just gonna call it filter. For this one, I don't really need to declare any variable because we're not storing any values. So we're just gonna jump right into the code. The first thing we're doing is we're selecting our first row entirely. So how we do that by this command, we just say rows 1 to 1 dot select. So this is what I did. This is all I did so far. What it does is, if you try to execute it, you'll see that it just highlights the first row. Does nothing else. Anyone brave enough to execute it?
Yeah.
Works? Okay, good. So here, I'll execute it, and you'll see that it's automatically selected what we need. And that's all it does so far. So now that we've selected, we need to just apply filters to it. Now there's this specific command that you have to use, and it's called autofilter. But it has some specific arguments that we'll go over, like how to manipulate it. So we're gonna say sheets. My sheet name is called filtering, and I'm going to say range. Now for this one, when we're doing filtering over a large, large data set, in this case, we have to specify the range of the entire data set, not just a specific cell or a specific element. There are ways around it, but for the sake of this example, we're just going to say, okay, select my entire data set and apply a filter to it. I know my data set goes from A1 all the way to U8400, so U8400. That's the entire range, so it goes from A1 to U8400. I'll zoom it up in a bit. So now instead of dot value, we're going to apply, and then we're just going to press space.
How about if you don't know that goes to 800?
Sorry?
How about if you don't know it goes to 800 or 400?
You don't know the range.
Oh, if you don't know, there are custom, you can develop custom codes that can dynamically make your ranges. And that's a bit advanced for like an introductory session, so we're not going to go into that. If you just Google how to set dynamic ranges in Excel VBA, it'll show you the exact steps it's going to do. But there are ways that you don't even have to worry about how many you have, because chances are that you're getting 8,400 lines right now, but next week when you get this data done, it might be at 1,000 less or 1,000 more. So you don't want to go through every single time and see, okay, how many is it this time, right? So good point. Yes.
Is that auto filter or auto filter?
Auto filter. Sorry.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Okay.
How about instead of putting the range on the, like, from A1 up to U, that one, how about if you make that set of data as a table, like create a table instead of that one, and putting that range name as a table, like whatever you call it?
I believe you can. You can do it. I'm all up for experimentation, but maybe we can try that after we're done the workshop.
Because I remember when we create like a VLOOKUP or anything,
Yeah.
we start that.
Yeah, you can create game ranges.
Create that table.
You can definitely do that. For the sake of simplicity,
Okay.
I'm not going over like a bit more advanced, but obviously yes, you can Google like, okay, how do I make dynamic ranges so that I don't have to worry about what numbers to put in. But for the sake of this example, we're just going to stick with like bare bones with constant numbers, painful coding, and go on with it. Okay, so this, so our code is not complete yet, because if you try to execute it, you'll see what happens is it will apply the filter, but we haven't selected anything. Like we haven't changed, like, we haven't sorted it, or we haven't selected what filters we actually use. Oops. So how we would do that is, and how we would put the arguments for the autofilter is put a space. We're going to say go to field, and this is the syntax which I will blow up in 1 second. For criteria equals okay. So this is what we did. Up until here, this is pretty much the same thing as assigning a variable. This is the new method that we use. I'm actually not sure if this is the correct thing to call it. I'm going to call it a method. I'm not an expert, don't quote me on this. But this is what we're doing instead of how we used value before. Now we're using autofilter. We have this tiny bit of space. We have one space over here. And oh man, I made a typo. This should be field. So this should be field, not file.
Go back for a second. You have
File
fields.
File.
Sorry. Why am I doing this? Why am I like this? There you go.
You're human, man.
Field. Did I spell this right?
No.
Yeah, okay, good. This is, okay. Essentially we're saying go to field number 4, which is our 4th column in our data set. And our criteria for the filtering is critical. So we're going to say anytime you see criteria, just show me everything that has critical inside of that column. And notice this actually has, it says criteria 1. And there's a number 1 over there. And that means that you can actually apply multiple criteria to one specific field. Who did I lose so far? Okay.
The
where?
autofilter field is just saying for it as the very
Yes.
order priority, right? It just goes in.
Yeah, it just goes to your 4th column.
So if I pick 3, it's for order name.
It would go here. If you pick field equals to 5, it will go to sales. And then, so your criteria 1, your first criteria of your filtering is essentially saying, okay, select only critical in my data set. If I had criteria 2 equals high, then I can select 2 criteria. For this example, we're just going to select 1. And I'm not going to execute it right here, I'm going to execute it from here.
You can do 2, then just a comma.
Space. Yeah, you can just add spaces. And when you're doing functions in Excel, you do commas. In VBA, you can do either or. So, but if you're doing commas, then you have to put it within parentheses. Right now, you see that I didn't put anything in parentheses.
What happens when there's a space but it's not specified? There's 2 words.
I'm sorry.
See how it says not specified in order of priority?
I don't follow.
The order of priority has medium, high, low, not specified, very critical. Yeah, so there's just not a space within not specified, so does that change something? Yeah.
Yes, so let's say if you wanted to do not specified, then you would just say not specified.
Yeah, say you wanted to do something else as well. So
Oh.
you want to do critical and not.
Okay, I see what you mean. Then you would do, sorry, one correction. You still need commas, but you always have to say what you're actually manipulating.
Yeah.
If you just do the parentheses, then you don't have to say criteria 1 equals this. You can just write in the criteria. Simplicity. Well, let's just go with this. You can Google the rest. You would just do
parent kids get it?
No, not for this. It should actually run. Let me just try it. So that I don't get any errors. Yeah, I do. Yeah, that works. If you do low and critical, then it should show you this. What? Oh my god. Well, it actually didn't work.
No, I think you're in the 8,000 line.
I think you have to select the field again.
Just go out.
So like the field again?
That's what I'm thinking.
Let's try. I've never done it, so good practice. No.
No?
To Google. And this is how you would troubleshoot. Yeah, I'm using it correctly. I won't be able to tell you right now what's going on, but you can take that as homework as to like better understand. Just for the sake of time and because I haven't worked too much with the filtering, I'm just gonna skip the multiple things. But it's a good question, and like, I'm curious to how you do it now. But you can try it on your own. If you do run this though, you can see that it's automatically sorted everything in circle. Yeah, everyone here so far?
Yeah.
Anyone lost so far? Okay, good. So, can anyone take a guess as to what we would have to do next if I were to say, now I have to sort my delivery method by the criteria of delivery truck. What is my field number and what is my criteria that I have to use? I just copied it again and you can. Any takers? What field number and criteria are we using? So
Field 8?
field 8, so it's 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, shift method, this would be 8. And what's our criteria?
What did you want?
We'll say delivery truck.
So you do that in criteria.
Delivery truck. And
Keep it at criteria 1, you can change that to like another criteria, doesn't it mix them up? Or am I,
we're using it on a different field now.
okay, fine,
So-
I understood that.
So so the first line, what it's doing is it's executing on this this column, on column number 4, and we're saying okay this one. What am I doing? It's saying okay for my column B, show me only that says critical. Now go to column number 8 and show me only that says delivery truck. And this way you can keep doing that, and you can like summarize your data further. So I just executed it, and it's showing me only delivery truck. So I'm going to quickly do the other 2, which we want to do. And like obviously feel free to explore and change any field to any criteria that you want. The ultimate goal is just to understand like, yes, I can do mass filtering with one click of a button. If I know that, okay, I'm using this every single time. What I'm doing is I'm changing my province to British Columbia. So which is in column 13 or field 13. And then I'm saying go to field 19 and show me only jumbo box. So it's the same code repeated 4 times. The only thing I'm doing is changing the field numbers and the criteria. Now I'm going to run it, and I have what I initially demonstrated. It's automatically sorted everything that I wanted, and you can develop these custom, filtering scenarios for any work that you do.
Let's say you have all this data, right? And right now it's under critical, but the other data has all of the combined. You just place it underneath, and then you refresh. Will it do the same thing?
If you add more data,
Yeah.
then no, because your range that you defined over here
No,
is
no,
up
no.
to
I'm
80.
saying there's a template just like that.
Yeah. Yeah, then you can
Same
use
thing.
same thing. Yeah. So that's the beauty of it, right? So let's say that you work with shipment data. You have to you're a process analyst or you're a warehouse operator or something, or you're a warehouse manager, and you're optimizing. You're trying to understand where your orders are going, and you're only focusing on critical, and you get this spreadsheet every single day.
Yeah.
You don't want to keep doing that filtering. Maybe by chance, random chance, you happen to miss one filter one day, and it throws your analysis off. So that's where it would be applicable.
No, I'm saying it's the first row.
Yeah.
Say if you had everything is blank.
Okay.
It's just the first row, and you filter it, and it filters through all the rows.
Mhm.
Then it can possibly do until it's maxed out.
Yeah.
If you keep adding to it and you're refreshing, it will just filter to whatever the template was.
Yes.
So it's the same thing.
Yeah. If you're doing the same thing that you can do in Excel,
In the
you're doing it in a macro.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
So
the same.
you don't have to actually do it every time. You just need one template one time, and then just add the data. And
With
refresh.
VBA, yes.
No. Without the VBA.
So you're saying over here, if you were just doing that over here?
Yeah. Like
And-
say you already had that as a template.
Yes, this data set as template.
Yeah, and you already filtered it under critical and whatever else.
Mm-hmm.
And you have the same data set, just different sheets of it. You can just copy that data to the bottom every time, and then refresh it, and it's already filtered.
If it's already filtered,
Yeah.
then it will add it to the last bit. It will add it below your current data set.
Yeah.
So when you filter, it doesn't delete anything. All it does is it compresses and shows you whatever you want to see.
Yeah.
So let's say this was your data set. I'm gonna keep this thing over here. Just pretend that my nose is like the end of the data set. Okay. When we filter it, you only see this much, but your data in the background is still this much. So when you copy something over, you're not copying and pasting over here. You're copying and pasting over here. And then when you rerun this filtering thing, it'll apply to the whole thing as long as your range over here is defined to include that. So you can over-define your range. You can say, okay, go up to 9,000 or something. Any questions on filtering? Did anyone try to do different fields? Yes.
I'm getting an error. It's saying user, application definer, object definer. I checked the code.
It might be a spelling mistake.
Yeah, like I checked it.
Is this still going strong? Okay.
Oh, it's already, I think because the filter is already applied. Try that clearing. Try it running. Let's debug. I'll show you how to.
So I still had a filter files.
Yes.
So that's what you.
We only have filter files in one column, not one column. You have it as.
Yeah, that's.
But you have to have it as all the.
Okay, so you might find that sometimes you, yes.
So question I had before, make it sustain.
Yeah.
So instead of putting the range,
Yeah.
if you make it the whole chart is the name table or something, whatever, and put it inside this bracket and parentheses is like a table name.
Yeah. Yeah, it should definitely work. There's so many crazy things you can do with like name ranges and manipulation. And yeah, good job. Okay, so anyone still lost in filtering? Yes.
Program doesn't work. It says,
So operate. Yeah, the first letter. So operate, bottom lowercase x. And then XL, not XL. So XL. Yeah. And then capital F. ILTD dot capital B. AL. So XL filter values to build the F and the B or F. And there's a comma before that. Yeah, comma, operator, colon, XL filter. There. Gotcha. Spend more time on this. That's by far, it's not close. Have you ever taken yeah. So that's what she wrote. Well, she also questions the just like honestly, my friend short term that's your question, you're realizing that's fine.
The red one that makes no sense.
Yeah.
Okay, for the sake of time, we're going to continue. The last thing that we're doing is I'm going to show you how to unfilter the data because you want to be able to do that fast as well. It's very, very simple. Literally one line of code, so I'm not going to spend too much time on it. I made a new sub, I called it unfilter. All I'm going to do is say active sheet show all data. So active sheet is analogous to saying sheets colon sheet 1. Instead of saying okay this for this specific sheet name, whatever sheet you have activated at that time, you're calling this method and saying okay show all data. I will zoom in for you. Okay. So usually it's good practice to include this code before you apply any filter whatsoever. Because chances are that if you have a filter applied already to your data set, it may give you some errors, depending on your version of Excel, depending on infinite other reasons. So, sorry? Before, yeah, so basically, I'm going to now add this, this line of code over here. So that it's essentially another way of error handling. And makes sure that, you know, if a data set is already applied, already a filter is applied, then Excel doesn't go crazy thinking, if you were asking me to apply a filter, it's already applied, and it just shows you an error. And you have no idea what's going on. So I'm just going to run through this code, and you'll see that right now it doesn't work because I did, I don't know what I did. It should work. Apply a filter. Yeah, so the other, it's a double-edged sword. So if you don't have a filter applied and if you try to run this code, it'll give you an error. So some error handling back and forth. So you can obviously apply an if statement for it. But all you would have to do is add this statement over here, and theoretically it should work if you already have a filter applied to it.
Wait, above or
Sorry?
above or within the zone? Because when you were talking,
Within. See now, like all I'm doing, I'm just copying this, pasting over here. And stick this there over here. But now this won't work if you have no filter applied to it. So for that one, you can write an if statement saying that if a filter is applied to it, then run this command. If there is no filter applied to it, go ahead. Don't worry about it. Okay, I'm going to continue with the filtering example. With the next example. The next one we're going to do three things. We're going to be able to create a new sheet using VBA. We're going to create a new sheet with a specific name, and we're going to create a new workbook, all through VBA commands. So I'm going to write, for the sake of remembering everything that I just said, I'm going to make buttons for all of them right now. And then you can just follow along. I don't have any macro yet, so I'm going to cancel whatever when it prompts me. And I'm going to say add new sheet. That's my first button. My second button is called, I'm going to make it this way. Why not? Make a new sheet with a specific name. Name is Charlie. You can name me whatever. I'm very creative with my button labeling. And I'm going to kill the aesthetics of this. Okay, this is number 1, number 2, number 3. All right. Okay, so based on what we've done so far, can anyone guess how we can add a new sheet? Again, VBA is stupid simple. It's supposed to be descriptive, like a, you know, whatever command you're writing, it's supposed to be like descriptive.
Sheet.new.
Close.
Sheets.new.
Very close.
Sheets bracket. New
What's
sheet.
a synonym for new? Add. There you go. All we're doing is saying sheets.add.
Cool.
So I'm going to make a new sub. I'm going to call it add sheet. And what we're doing is we're saying sheets.add. Zoom in. So that's what it is. Yeah, so far so good. Anyone executed it?
So can you, what does that do again?
It creates a new sheet. So let's run it. Let's see what happens. just look at my this thing over here at the bottom. See what happens if I keep running this. It will keep adding a new sheet.
So it only adds one time?
Yeah, every click of a button adds a sheet. And I just created 36 of them for no apparent reason. So, I don't know why. You guys gotta stop me from doing stupid stuff.
Just use a do loop.
Right?
Use a do loop.
Use a do, yeah, you can. But now what we can do is we can assign it to this button over here by right clicking and saying assign macro. And we can just add our subroutine over there and say add sheet. And it'll take you to the new sheet that you just added. Yeah.
So,
What is the point of this?
no, isn't it, so it should be advisable to just make a template for the first one that has all the macros. So then you just go to the first sheet, you click it, and it'll do the rest of the back, right?
I don't follow.
You know how you assign the macros to it?
Yeah.
So if you work, you have work, and you have a bunch of sheets.
Yeah.
Connected to your macro button, show you the first one, basically, so it's more organized, so you know.
Again, yeah, it's all purely for demonstration. Of course, you're completely right. Like, this is not an ideal way of organizing anything. Just for the sake of demonstration, all we're doing is we're adding a sheet. And we can take it one step further by saying, once you add, if you notice, like once you add a sheet, it will take you to that sheet. Let's say we don't want that to happen. We want it to stay on this sheet, which is, I'm going to call this the main sheet. And once you add it, just come back to this main sheet. So how we do that, we just say sheets, main, activate. So right now we have 41 sheets within this workbook. I clicked on it, it created it, and then it went back to the main sheet.
The buttons for macros in a separate sheet, say 242, there was a macro that we created, like a VBA program, whatever, and we put it on this sheet. Can we do that?
Yeah, you should be able to. But the thing is, if you have sheet-specific commands written down in your VBA, then they will only execute in that sheet. Does that make sense?
Say it again?
If you have sheet-specific commands,
Okay.
such as like our for loop that we did,
The
right?
button has to be in that sheet.
It has to be. Yeah. The command, you don't have to run it in that sheet
Okay.
unless it's dependent on how you code it, essentially. So the way we've coded it is we've made it foolproof by saying that it only applies to this sheet name, which is for loop.
Yeah.
You can take that away and you can actually just say active sheet instead of sheet name, the actual sheet name.
Oh,
And-
no. Okay, what I was saying is that for loop or whatever, right? We have that code, and then we created a button for it, right?
Yes.
That button can be placed in a template, like a blank sheet.
Yes, it
And
can.
it can run the other sheet.
Yes, yes, it can.
That's what I'm saying.
Yes,
So
it can.
Organize the template, blank sheet,
Mhm.
so for all your other ones.
Yes.
You just need to look at the template blank sheet.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. You can. Yeah. Definitely, you can do that. Very good point. So, everyone, is anyone here lost into how we create new sheets and how we make it jump back to the previous sheet? Jumping back is by just saying sheets main.activate. By doing that, if I add a new sheet, it'll come back to my main tab. So you see over here, it has sheet 45 right now, over here. I'm gonna add a new sheet. It added a new sheet, but it came back to this main tab. So if I,
You specify the sheet you want.
yeah, so if I don't do this second line of code, you see what happens? If I do this, it'll actually take me to that sheet. Yeah. It's just for my convenience. I don't want to have to scroll through it and say, okay, come back to this. The next thing I'm going to do is say add new sheet with specific name. So right now it's just automatically going to create sheet 41, 42, 43 incrementally. In an ideal scenario, if you're using this, you don't want to do that. You want to be able to name it whatever you want anyway. So we're going to say add sheet with specific name. You can call it whatever you want. It doesn't matter. The first two, the first command is pretty much the same. You're just adding one more thing onto the side of it. You're saying hello. I'm gonna call my sheet hello, and I'm gonna do the same thing where it jumps back to my original sheet. Okay. So the only thing I added was this term. So it's sheets.add.name equals hello. And what that does is it creates a new sheet with the name hello. You can call it whatever you want. You can name it your name. You can name it Charlie. Oh, I think I wrote down Charlie, so I'm going to use Charlie. So now I'm going to run this. And you see that it created a sheet called Charlie. If I try to run it again, it will give me an error because Charlie already exists. That's a drawback of this. That's why moving forward you need to add into a for loop if you need custom naming.
Doesn't make static sheets called sheet.
If it tries to, and then it says, oh, you already have one.
Doesn't want.
Yeah, it only does once. Obviously, you can put it into a for loop, and then say Charlie ampersand I, and then you can Charlie 1, Charlie 2, Charlie 3 into that loop. So yeah, that's how you create it, and then you can just assign this macro to add sheet with specific name. And if I delete Charlie again, go back to name, and I click on this, it creates Charlie. Our last example in the set of simple examples is adding a new workbook. I'm going to say sub add new workbook. And then for this one, we actually have to, it's nicer to define declare an immediate variable. So I'm just going to quickly do that. I'm going to call it new book as workbook. So now my variable is called new book, and the type of variable is workbook. It's not an integer. It's not a floating point. It's not anything. It's the type is workbook, and the name of my variable is called new book. Does that make sense? Like, you know how we had like long, int, integer, whatever before, now we have workbook. So far so good? Okay. So next step is I'm going to say, can anyone take a guess on how we add a new workbook? There you go. Workbook, actually it's workbooks. But close enough. So we now add a new workbook by just saying workbooks.add. If you run through it, you'll see that it just opens up a blank Excel file for you. Question? Is there a question? Okay. So that's literally all it does, and if you put it in a for loop, you can actually for loop with like 1,000 lines, and you can crash them into you. It's amazing. Try it on your phone.
Fine. Alright. What was the point of the first line? The declaration?
Yeah, that's not.
Oh, it'll come.
Oh.
Okay. So right now it's kind of pointless to just create a new workbook because really, if you're using it within like a subset of a larger subroutine, then you can't really do much with it. So by assigning a variable, now I'm going to say that whatever new workbook that I opened up, I'm going to assign it as the active workbook. Okay? And by doing this, I'll be able to manipulate it because then I can call on it anytime I want.
Can you do this for sheets as well?
Yes.
So you can assign active sheet?
Yeah, you can say new sheet as sheets, I believe.
Okay.
Try it.
New sheet.
worksheet. You can do the same thing.
Cool.
Okay, so we've now said, okay, anytime it opens a new workbook, I want to call that new workbook new book. That's not how it's going to save the file as though. So now we can, that's just how it's reading it within the memory of the code. Now we're actually going to do something that's quite powerful because it allows you to export and save files wherever you want within your computer. So now that we've opened up a new workbook, we want to be able to say, we want to be able to save it on our desktop anywhere we want. So we'll just do new book.save as. Obviously we're saving as. And our file name is going to be equal to the path of where we need to save it. So if you don't know how to extract a path, you can essentially there's a way. This computer is weird because it's in temporary storage. Yeah. So if you click on any folder if you right click on any folder while holding Shift, it will allow you to not do anything. It will allow you to copy as path. So you can see the path of this. So it'll be like B:/ whatever. So you don't have to type that tedious thing. You can just paste that over there.
You can just go to the top, right?
Yeah, you can also go to the top. You can go here as well. Yeah, you're right. You can do this as well. But that gives you of where you are currently. Let's say I'm in my desktop now, I can do this, put it right there. So right now, I haven't specified a file name. I've only specified like where it's going to be. So I'm just going to add one little tiny bit of code and say save this as export.xlsx. And it'll save it as that appropriate format, and the file name will be called export. So we'll try it. And
What was after the dot?
oh, sorry, XLSX.
Yeah, that's for the macro, right? I mean, macro.
You can do XLS as well.
That's for macro.
Right?
That's for enabling macro.
No, for enabling macros, it is XLSM. For a normal workbook, it's XLSX.
Okay.
So there you go. So the one with the exclamation point, this is the macro, and this is XLSM, and this is no macro, this is XLSX. You can manipulate this path however you want to be able to output any file type you want. And obviously, this is, or not obviously, but this is the path. This is your file name, your actual file name. Beautiful. And this is your extension. We're using D drive over here. We're going to folder users we're going to desktop within my username, within users, within D. And just like this, you can put it into any folder you want. You can actually, you're not limited to Excel files. You can actually do any file you want. You can take a PDF and move it in a different folder. So let's say you have thousands of PDFs in one folder, and you have somehow magically you have like a list of all their file names. You can create a loop and say, okay, take all those files and move them either in this folder or this folder or this folder or this folder based on an if statement. So say that if the file name starts with an F, you put it into the folder that's titled F. If the file name starts with a P, put it into the folder that says P. And that way, you can do crazy stuff with this.
So does it, doesn't have to be Excel?
No. You can do PDFs. It's actually ridiculous what you can do with this.
So then this VBA is not part of Excel, right?
Yeah, but it can do shell scripting as well, so it can like manipulate files within your computer. So right now, it's saving. You can actually save it as a .pdf as well, and it'll still work. Because Excel allows you to save as a PDF or a CSV or any file format that Excel allows by going here, save as, desktop, and whatever. You can use all of these.
So is this like I guess this code is like a remote computer?
Not a remote, but you can do shell scripting. What you're looking for is shell scripting. You can essentially, with certain libraries installed within Excel, you can like go in there and change all your files to whatever you want and automate your actions.
So it's beyond Excel.
Yeah, with VBA, with specific libraries, you can do anything you want in your computer. It's actually stupidly powerful.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was the last bit of the examples. Unfortunately, we won't have time to go over the entire project, so you can do that as a take-home project. But I'll go over what it actually does and how the code is structured. So that's just a blank data set. And then if you open up, or don't open up, you can just see it over here. So this is the main tab where I put all my relevant macros, and I've written down some instructions for people who may want to, use this file. Let's say you're the VP Finance of, what did I say? The Robinson Elementary Stupid Scholars. And you're using this. So I'm going to, I'm first going to delete all of these. Oh my god. Such joy in clicking. I'm able to make a macro to delete all these sheets. You should be able to now. Okay. So I have 3 tabs over here. The first one is just my main tab, which has instructions and 2 buttons. Obviously, it won't run right now. That was an accident. It won't run right now, but that's what it does. It just exports, like I said, each account code into a separate file. And every simple example that I've shown you guys here, I've only used those with maybe 1 or 2 extra things, which are very simple to follow. And you can actually recreate this on your own for any project that you want. So I have my raw data over here, and I'm sort of synthesizing it over here. And not gonna go too much into like what I'm doing over here, but essentially, wherever the number changes over from here to here, and this is account 3 data, and this is account 4 data. So I'm just like segmenting it. And this is just a VLOOKUP of this table over here, where I have code and account name. So I'm saying whatever code you find over here is the account name, and if the number has changed, then increment it. If the number has not changed, then don't increment it. Everything else here is the same. And my lookup table just has account 1, account 2, whatever else. Now, for my macros, I have, I think, 3 modules, but I'm only using 2. I'm only using 1, sorry. The first one is just called Make Sheets. And all it's doing is it's making a sheet for every one of these, and it's naming it account 1, account 2, account 3, account 4. What am I using over here? I am using my sheets.add_name, sheets.add.name, and then that is equal to a variable, and that variable changes based on a for loop because I'm incrementing with everything. So if I execute it, it's just created that many sheets for me. Now I can jump back to, this is silly. Now I can jump back to my paste tab because I've already put in my sheets. My second subroutine over here is just to clear all data. We're not really using clear data yet because there is no data to begin with in these sheets, and all that macro does is it goes to every sheet and deletes everything inside of it so that you can start fresh. And then this is the heart and soul of this code, which is, I'm calling it a copy pasta. And what it's doing, I'll show you line by line what it's doing. So it's just easier to do to show rather than describe. This function, this line of code, application.screen updating equals false. What it does is every time you execute a code, it visually shows you the sheets jumping around. That slows down the program a lot. So to counter that effect, you can just say equals false, and it doesn't update your screens. But for the sake of this, I'm gonna comment that out, just for shits. So it's going to your paste sheet. It's just inserting a few things. And notice how I have this if statement over here that checks if there's already a filter applied. And if there isn't, then it applies it.
So the application, we go to false so that it doesn't slow down.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be the screen update or whatever.
Yeah, that whole program. Application.screen updating equals false.
So it could be cut paste, application dot cut paste equals false, right?
No, screen update.
Okay, but can it be application cut paste mode? Equals false?
It can, but that does a different thing.
But is that what the false just prevents it from slowing down?
The false disables that feature. So the feature of screen updating is it just disables it. So screen updating, all it does is like it shows you in real time how the it's moving from sheet to sheet or from cell to cell or however else. So going into the loop, it's looking at the first code, it's filtering for that first code, it's copying it, putting it in here, and going into that. If you remember, it's adding a new sheet, it's copying it over there, it already exists, closing it, going back, and then redoing it. I'm going to delete all of these because otherwise this is going to not work. So, that's what it's doing essentially. 48 times. Source every time, filters every time, copies it over to a new workbook, saves that workbook with that specific name, and it does that very, very fast. And you can do this manually as well, and it will take you 2 hours. So I can leave this up to you guys to figure out. It's very simple to follow, and I've commented everything for you guys to understand. And you should have no problem, if you followed along so far with the example, you should have no problem following along with the comments. What I will show you is an easy way to make VBA codes. So right now, what we've done is actually hard-coded everything. There is a way within VBA where you can actually just record your steps and procedures and just have it run that steps and procedures every time. I'll show you exactly what I mean.
Just to record the macro, right?
Yeah, just to record your macro. So if I go back to simple examples, I'm going to go to my filtering example because that's the best example I can think of. I'm going to go to my developer ribbon. I'm going to over here. There's this thing called record macro. I'm going to start the recording of the macro, and I'm going to call this recording 1. You can call it whatever you want. But now you can see that the thing changes to stop recording. So any action you do will be recorded as a line of VBA. So if I'm doing this, I'll show you like there should be like 10 lines of just like random clicking everywhere. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna say, select all of this, apply a filter, select critical, select delivery truck, and that's it. That's what I want this recording to do. And I'm gonna stop the recording, and it should be in the latest module. Oh, it didn't go through the clicking. I think it only works if you do like using your keyboard, not the clicking. But you can see that it does the same thing. We coded this from scratch. We said rows 1 column 1 selects the first row, applies an autofilter, applies an autofilter again because I clicked it twice, and then it just has those autofilter and criteria that you need.
That's from the recording.
Yeah, that's from the recording. So you don't always have to start from scratch. That's my point. You can start with a little bit of recording, because just to speed things up for you and simplify your syntax, and then you can just manipulate as you go along, and that's how pros do it too. And don't ever be scared or afraid to Google. Like, Googling does not make you an inferior coder; it just makes you an efficient coder.
So the main relation, you do that just because you can't record it? Because there's some things you can't record?
Yeah, there are some things you can. So like, let's say I want to add a specific thing. I don't know. I want to add you can't add loops, right? You can't do loops within recordings. You can't do if statements within recording. You can add a button with recording. You can't. So you can add a new sheet, but you can't like replicate it in a way that it adds like a proper name or not proper thing. So there are limitations to it, but it's powerful because I just recorded that, and I can just go in here and say run this recording, and it just ran the recording.
We can apply that macro to other parts.
Yeah, you can. Why not? Yeah. So we're at 9 o'clock. I have these slides available for you guys to look at. It's the same sample programs. You can follow along with the project if you want, learn more. But essentially that's it. Thank you very much for your attention, and
Thank you.